In this video, we're going to install IBM Counter Fraud Management version 2.0.0.3. And specifically, we're going to use the 3-server topology. So we'll have core, data, analytics, tools, and supplemental servers. To save time accessing the Red Hat Enterprise Linux servers, I'll be accessing them through this jump server here. Now, in our environment, we're not going to use DHCP. We're going to use a hosts file. So go into the hosts file. And be sure you have something like this. So IP address on the left, fully qualified domain name first, and then the short name second. And you have data, core, analytics, client, supplemental, and optionally have jump. I have jump, but you don't need that. Notice for client 2 that we have both client and client 1 listed. Now ping all of your machines using both the short and the fully qualified domain name from each of the machines. Now, this is an optional step, but if you're using a jump server like I am, you can create keys to log in to your remote machines without a password. And to do that, you'll run these commands here. So first we'll create the key pair and answer no password for this prompt. And we're just taking the default for this first prompt here. And now we're going to transfer that key over to this server here. In this case, we're going to use the data server. And what's really nice about this is you can now type in SSH root at data and you're logged in all without a password. Now just repeat that command for all the other servers. So here I'm going to do the analytics server, and now you can log into the analytics server and so on down the line with the supplemental server. So there's supplemental. And then the next one would be, and really this sort of the last one is going to be core. Okay, and then test. So here's SSH root at core, SSH root at analytics, and SSH root at supplemental. Okay, so now let's get the host name figured out. So we'll go here, make sure your host name is, I'm going to make mine all lowercase, but make sure it's the short name, not the fully qualified domain name. And then type host name and then the name of your machine. So this time it's data in this case. And then reboot the machine, which unfortunately may be a requirement with your version of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Okay, now repeat that for all of the machines except for the client machine. And once you do that, you should be able to SSH into data, type in hostname and hostname S, which is the short version, and F, and get the right values. Make sure you're set for this UMask. Set this to permissive and reboot. Then repeat that for the remaining servers and then issue an SE status once they've come back up, and just make sure that they come back like this. Then issue this command to disable the firewall and make sure you get this output, and then repeat that for the remaining servers. On this page, make sure that you can ping like it suggests. Now run yum y update on all 4 of the machines, and I actually like to run that before running this one. And then be sure to run the yum install command, and eventually you'll get to a complete screen like this. And eventually you'll get to complete. Now let's switch over to the Windows machine, type in services.msc, go down to remote registry, right click, go to properties, and make sure that it says automatic. Now click start, close the window for services, and now type in control. Now go to view network status and tasks, advanced sharing settings, expand all networks and select turn on and select turn off and click save. Now close that window and then go back to your PowerShell or command prompt and type user account control settings and then bring it down to never notify and then click on OK. Now turn off the firewall with this command and optionally verify that it's working with this command, where working means off, off, and off. Since we're not using soft layer in this environment, I'm skipping this page. Now go back to CMD, type control, go to system and security, then go down to administrative tools and locate local security policy. Go down to local policies, security options. Go down to user account control, run all administrators, and then click properties and set it to disabled and click OK. Now go up to accounts administrator account status and make sure it says enabled, which it does here. And make sure that guest is enabled as well, and then close local security policy and close this window and this window too. Now download and install Notepad++. Now go to the download location for ICFM 2.0.0.1 I've downloaded here on Windows. So ICFM Media works like this. You have to download the installation files somewhere. I installed them here inside Windows, but you may have installed them in NFS in some Linux machine. The point though, however you do it, is that all of these machines need to have access to some shared location in the way we're about to do this. And that includes the client. So you can do that on Windows or you can do that in NFS. You get to choose. So if you downloaded everything to the Windows machine, then all of these Linux machines need to connect over to it using something called CIFS or SMB, and that's a mount command, which I'll show you now. Okay, so I'm on the data machine. You can see I do a sudo mount. The -t is for type, CIFS. I do an O to enter the username, type in your username and password, do a / and the IP address of the machine, the name of the share, and then this is critical, it has to be /ICFM media. Now that share is also critical because it comes from a Windows share. Which folder am I sharing? It's the download directory where I grabbed all of the downloads for ICFM. Now if you instead downloaded all of your ICFM files into the NFS or Linux machine, then you need to do what's called an export, which is really just the same as a share, and that is also a mount command, which I will show you now. These are the commands that you need to set up the NFS server and also the NFS client, and we'll do that now. I'll assume that you already ran either yum or apt install, and I'll assume if you go to ICFM Media and do LL, those are your downloads there. Then go into Vim Etsy exports, make sure that yours says ICFM Media like this, and you have a star and a RO, comma, FSID. RO is read-only, FSID is the file system ID, and save that file and then restart your service, the NFS service. Do a show mount -e and that should show you your ICFM media as mounted or shared. Now go down to the data server, do a make dir ICFM media. In the instructions, scroll down, and now we can do this mount command. Type in the name of your server and hit enter. If you get an error like I did, just take out the -t, which indicates the file system type, and it should go through. And now do a cd into ICFM media, and sure enough, you should see files. Once you're done and you want to unmount that, you go cd, and then you can do an unmount command like this. And now if you try to cd into ICFM media and do an LL, there are no contents. Okay, I'll remount mine. So no matter if you had Windows or if you had NFS, at this point you now have ICFM media. We have it mounted in data, and now you have to do the same in analytics, core, and supplemental. And you can see I've done that, so I've got the data machine at the top, which is already done. We have analytics, core, and supplemental. All of those have the make dir and then the mount command. Then be sure you can do an ls from each of those ICFM medias and that you get contents back. Now notice on the NFS mount and really the client machine too, you have these 3 client files that are not required for the server. So I'm just going to move them out with the sudo mv command. And the same applies for that DL Manager Pro file too. Now I did that on your equivalent of one of these 2 machines. So if we do an LL on one of these Linux machines, we should no longer see those client files. Okay, so I'll do an LL and pipe that to less just to double check. And sure enough, there are no more client files. Now, our goal is to run these 3 commands here, but we can't do that until we first extract these files here, which you can see on the right. And we do that with these 2 commands here. So I've gone ahead and done that, and if I do ls, you'll see all of the zip files. I've also, to save space, removed all of the original tar files. And so this is the result, and if you do an ls pipe wc, you'll see 51 results. And that is indeed what it says here. This command counts the number of files and it returns approximately 51 results. Okay, and now I'll switch over to the data server. I'll copy these 3 commands and then I'll paste them in here. Then run the next 2 commands shown on the left. I'll choose number 1 and then :q to exit and y to accept the license. Type in update db. That will let you type in locate custom.properties, and there's the path. So now if you're using PuTTY like I am, you can just drag through that path and then open it with Vim or VI if you have that. If the colors are hard to read, you can type :color cooler and hit tab. And then make the changes like it says here. Make sure this one says that it's false and that we have our remote set to ICFM media under Unix. Then save your changes with Shift ZZ. Now do a locate cfm.3.properties. And because we want to edit that, you can put vim $parentheses around it and we'll immediately start doing an edit of that file. Then change these values as it suggests. You can see mine here, and you can see my value for was LTPA domain, which does indeed match hostname-d. Okay, now save that file with the Shift ZZ, and then run these two commands. And then the last two commands with the export and echo just to be sure you get a value. Then cd into this folder, make sure you put dev1 if that's what you used. Then scroll down to the 3-server installation, copy all of this text here, paste it into some editor like Notepad++, and then replace where it says instance name with whatever you used for an instance name. You also need to go to the end of each line and hit the delete button to remove the line break so that it's all one line. And you need to provide a password here. And be careful because here where it says P for the password, this is a typo. There should be a greater than bracket which will redirect the output into this log file here. So be sure you have a right bracket, a right greater than sign right after the password. And beware of another typo here where it says it's going to create this log in the bin folder. We don't want that. We want that to be the log directory log folder. And notice too that the very last thing it's going to do is run a tail on that same location. So be sure to change bin to log in both locations. So you can see I've done that here with log. So your final command should look something like this. And you should see ignoring input or possibly a warning, but those are just warnings at the beginning for no hub. And then you should see actual output related to the progress of the installation next. Now, if you don't, you can always hit Control-C. No hub means no hang up, meaning if you lose your connection to the network, so if PuTTY loses its connection, if you lose your Wi-Fi, the whole installation will continue. If you need to, for some reason, to stop the installation, enter top and then look for Java, hit K, and then enter the PID number, so 20953. That will stop the installation, and then you can hit Q to leave that. Also, if you do get disconnected, let me do that here. You can simply copy and paste this last part of the command and pick up where you were at so you can see the progress. And if something really bad happens, meaning you can't keep going for some reason, you want to go into this log folder here. So do a cd into that folder, and you can do an ll-t to sort by time, and it's the most recent ones that will give you the most information that's relevant to the problem. And notice too that these files are not the same as the CFM install log, so these are two very different files. If you want to see what, for example, the base one looks like, which generally is a good idea if you have trouble, do a tail F on that and take a look at that, or just do a vim on it. Its contents would look something like this, and you can just sort through and navigate till you find what's gone haywire. Once the install is all finished, it should look like this, where you see OK, 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 and success at the bottom. If you had trouble getting to this point and you had gone into top, like I had said earlier, and killed the Java process, you should avoid doing that if at all possible, because you may have some other process like DB2 or some other installation still running. So if at all possible, do avoid trying to kill processes and just start over, especially if you have snapshots of a good working state before the install. Okay, now we will archive the DB2 key store file as it says. Here are the commands that I used to run through this process.